This is the 21.5 Show.
You're on 121.5, the emergency frequency.
Whether you're a professional pilot or want to be one, you're in the right place.
Let's get started.
Join professional aviators Dylan and Max as they talk their experience in the airlines, business aviation, and more.
Life is good.
Industry experts, unique stories, and plenty of fun. This is the 21.5 Show.
Here we go.
Oh, Max, we are so excited to be joined by our friend and new partner, Derrek Khajavi. He is a 747 captain for an ACMI carrier, as well as the co-owner and founder of Paradox Aviation Luggage Company. Welcome to the program, Derrek.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Derrek, lots to get to today. Of course, want to talk about your wonderful luggage that you've created. And also, we're so excited to talk to you about the ACMI flying. We get a fair amount of emails from listeners asking about that type of flying, and I don't think we've ever really had a guest on.
No, we've never talked about it on the show. So
really excited to learn more about that side of the 121 world. First, we got to start off with, you're the first 121 pilot we've interviewed with a beard, which is a flex, and I love that. So
power move.
It's a real power move.
Yeah.
So give us the intro, give us the background on all that.
Yeah, it's fairly new, actually. So as you mentioned, ACMI carrier, we fly boxes. We recently added facial hair as being allowed following the European airline model. It's been quite interesting showing up at the airplane and seeing a group of guys that you should know and you don't recognize anybody because they're all are looking a little more furry than usual. So, but giving it a try. We'll see how it goes. I haven't decided if it's going to be a full-time thing or not, but
just
for now,
doing it because you can.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm doing it because I can. Exactly.
It's a big. What priority was that in the union negotiation? Was that real high on the list?
No, it really. I mean, I hope not.
Well, wait, what does it say? Like, is there a length limit? Like, can you have like a Duck Dynasty beard or?
No, I think this is probably about as far as it can go. I think it's quarter inch is what they say.
Really? Okay.
It may not be even legal now. I'm not sure. I've been out of work for a week now.
That's right.
I go back soon. So now this is the length it's going to be, and I'll have to trim it a little bit, I think.
God, I would just give anything to have been in that boardroom when everyone's negotiating it, and the company attorneys are like, "Well, we'd like to propose a 1/8 inch beard," and then they're pushing, "No, it's going to be 3/4."
Yeah, I wasn't a fly on the wall on that one, but it would have been interesting to see what the conversation was. But I'm glad we have it. It's nice as an option.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, well, give us a little idea. How did you get into the ACMI side of things? I guess we should probably, if you could define what ACMI stands for any of our listeners that maybe don't know.
Yeah. So without getting into definitions of acronyms, we're basically a non-scheduled cargo carrier, and in that sense, we fly for a lot of different companies. We're hired out, but we also fly for the big guys like FedEx, UPS, the Postal Service, and other big cargo airlines as well. And we also do military and government flying in addition. So it's a little mixed bag, and which is nice. One of the reasons I like it actually is that I'm not doing Cincinnati to Toledo every day, back and forth. I'll be in Europe for 2 days, 3 days, and then I'll be in Asia for 2 or 3 days, and then back in the States and Africa and all over the world, and not really knowing at the beginning of my trip where I'm going to end up, which is kind of, and for me, it's a good thing. I like it. Not everyone does.
Yeah, that could be, but that's interesting. So I've always heard a lot of times your trips are like you're literally going around the world, like the way that they sell and the way it's put together. Like you keep going, right? It's like you're not out and back. I mean, so can you kind of tell us like how long a trip is and like I don't know what it looks like?
Yeah, I mean, right now our current contract we have a 16-day monthly commitment to the airline. In general, most our trips are lined up as 16-day trips. Although with seniority, you can bid 1 week on, 1 week off, which is what I'm doing right now for the holidays. When you do a 2-week stint, it's not uncommon to have rounded the world 2 or 3 times by the time you're done. We are home based, so when they need us to start in Cincinnati or Miami or Los Angeles or New York. They commercial me from where I live to where they need me to start. And oftentimes that's the last time I see the States until I go home. So a lot of times I'm just overseas the entire 2 weeks.
Wow. And do you know the structure of the trip? Like at the start of the 16-day, do you have a pretty good idea, or are they like adding things on in your available days?
Yeah, that's the one thing with ACMI that's I think quite a bit different than flying for a regional or a major is that you really know what you're doing when you're flying regionally and for a major. You know what your trips are, where you're going to be at any given point. Technically, our schedules are designed so that we're supposed to have a schedule that stays true, but the standing joke is that 2 days into your trip, it's not the trip that you bid for. So you really, in the ACMI world, you really have to have a little more flexibility with your work schedule, knowing that you're going to work certain days; those are your work days. But where you're going to be and for how long, you don't have very much control of. And that's just the world we're living in for ACMI.
So I have two questions. One, when you show up, are you generally flying the same airplane for the whole time you're out?
No.
Oh, okay, so you will switch to different airplanes.
Yeah, so our airplanes, on average, last time I looked, they're airborne 21 out of 24 hours a day. So when we land somewhere, they're back in the air within a couple, 2-3 hours. And
wow.
we're changing crews every time the airplane lands. It's changing to a new crew. It's very rare to stay on the airplane for more than a day.
Okay, and then when you fly, how much time do you have usually off, or what's the range, or the overnight time?
Yeah, so our flights, it's rare to do anything shorter than 3 or 4 hours on a normal flight. We have flights that go 16 hours. For example, flying from Cincinnati to Incheon, Korea, it's just shy of 16 hours, depending on the winds. So in a flight condition like that, it's not uncommon for us to have 24 hours off, sometimes 36 hours, depending on the schedule. The busier we are, the more we fly, so that they'll obviously give us the minimum rest requirements. But it's uncommon not to have a day off in between a flight like that and the next rotation.
And are you typically paired with the same crew for the 16 days, or does that change a lot too?
Nope, that's also variable. It's very common that I'll fly with 10 different crews in a given 2-week period. It's very rare that you stay together.
Wow. So really, like when you're getting, I don't know if you guys do PBS or like a line bidding or something. I mean, are you basically just looking at, well, I want this half of the month off, so it's either like the first, middle, or end, or well, I guess not even really middle. It's like, how do you do that?
There's really there's no buddy bidding really. There's no, I mean, you can bid. I want to overnight in Leipzig, Germany, because I like Leipzig and Christmas.
Yeah.
But the standing joke is that if you bid Leipzig, Germany, you're going to get Okinawa, Japan, or
right.
It just, again, that's that flexibility. You just have to understand that these are your work days, and everything in the middle is just not controlled by you.
Right. Yeah.
And if you get hung up on things like that, that's where ACMI I think gets a lot of guys, is they really want to know that I'm going to be in Toledo these days and these hours, and it just doesn't work out that way with ACMI.
It kind of reminds me a little bit about like folks that work for the fractionals, like FlexJet or NetJets, where it's
very
like, look, these are the days you work, and
well, it's at the airlines too. What's interesting is that you have people that like don't like being on reserve because they don't know like what's going to go, when they're going to go to work, and then some people just do not. Like I'm one of the people, I could care less. Like,
it really doesn't matter.
I'd much rather roll the dice and maybe get some extra free days off at home, and not have no clue of where I'm going or when. Like I could care less about that stuff. But
and that's again, I think part of the appeal for me is that I don't go to the same place over and over again. Certainly, we have places that we end up more often than others, but I could be in a place I've never been to before on this next rotation, and it was of course not planned. It wasn't on my schedule, but somebody called and needed something moved quickly, and there we are.
Do you have pretty regular destinations you hit often though? Like
we've got I'd say a dozen hubs per se that we hit a lot because of long-standing contracts. DHL is one of our big carriers, for example. So there's DHL hubs that we're in all the time, Cincinnati and Miami and places like that. But outside of that, like I said, it's not uncommon that in that same month I may hit 2 or 3 of those common ones, and then 2 or 3 I've never been to before.
And that's so cool because it's one of the things that Max and I have said we love about business aviation, especially 135 charter the most, is that you're going to go to a lot of places you would never go otherwise. And I think even like international airline flying, you're typically going to the larger cities, but
Sure.
it sounds like for you, would you say you're going somewhere new like every couple months? You're at an airport you've never been at?
That's probably pretty accurate. Yeah.
Wow.
It's common enough that it's something I plan for actually when I hit the road is, you know, when you pack for your domestic flying in the winter, you pack your winter stuff. Well, I pack my winter stuff and my board shorts and my flip flops all in the same bag because I could very well be in South America or Australia just as much as I could be in Anchorage in our winter. So it's you have to be prepared for that because it does happen all the time.
Dude, how before the iPad, like how
Oh,
did you carry enough charts for this operation? Was it on the airplane?
Yeah, it's a big airplane. Don't forget it. We have a lot of space on the airplane. So yes, we would carry all our manuals, and it was quite the job for someone to get tasked to update the manuals when the revision came because it was a stack about 2-3 feet high.
Yeah. God, that
and
had
it would
been
take all
great.
16 hours of our flight to update everything.
That's the junior man assignment, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow. Okay, I want to geek out for just a couple minutes on the 747. I've never been on one. First of all, how long have you been flying that airplane, and like, have you flown different variants of it, or just kind of talk to us about the 747 for a few minutes?
Yeah. So when I started, we were still operating the what we call the classic, which is the 100s and 200s, which had the flight engineer station as well. And very quickly we retired those, and I was brought over to the 400, which is what I'm on now. I've been flying about 8 years on the 74. The majority been on the 400, and it is the queen. It's a sweetheart airplane. I joke they'll have to pry my cold dead hands out off the throttles. Just don't have a lot of desire to go into the other. We fly 777s as well, and I'm just nothing wrong with the 777. I'd fly it if that was what I was required to fly. But as long as I have the opportunity to stay on the 74, I'll stay on the 74.
Are you guys getting the Dash 8s?
We probably will. We had a couple of opportunities that didn't work out in the last minute, but it's just a matter of time. Yeah, we have no choice really. We're gonna have to eventually start bringing Dash 8s on.
When you're flying 21 hours a day, the hours
They
add
rack
up
up
pretty
pretty
quick on those airframes, I would assume. So
Yeah, they do. We just end up retiring a few airplanes that they were well due for retirement.
Oh, that is amazing. So, okay, typically you've got how many folks on board the aircraft? Typically,
Yeah. So of course the minimum would be 2. It's I think I can count the number of times that's happened to me in 8 years on one hand. In general, we have multiple pilots, and we generally carry what's we call an FME, a flight maintenance engineer, who's basically a mechanic that flies with the airplane and maintains it as we round the world. He lives on the airplane for weeks on end. And then in addition to that, we might have load masters when we do military flying and government flying. A lot of times we'll have load masters to accommodate the loads. And then sometimes we carry supernumeraries, which are folks that are there to take care of horses and other livestock, or special cargo that requires special training that our guys might not have. So we might have 12 people on an airplane sometimes.
wow.
So how much of the time are you just carrying like cargo containers, like palletized cargo containers, and what's some of like the weird stuff that you carry?
It's probably 50-50, maybe 75-25 as far as containerized loads. So if you look at the back of your typical DHL or FedEx or UPS plane, most of the time we carry that kind of thing from Hong Kong, let's say, or somewhere in China. The other times it can be a real mixed bag. I've carried a couple hundred head of cattle around the world. We've flown hundreds of millions of dollars worth of racehorses, the entire collection of a famous car manufacturer's museum at one time. It's definitely the interesting part of it, and of course the military stuff, which is always interesting as well.
Wow.
So do you know what's back there, like in the cargo containers, or only if it's like hazmat or lithium-ion batteries or what?
Yeah, we don't know generally if it's mixed cargo, containerized mixed cargo. Like you said, you won't know unless it's hazmat or contains lithium batteries or other materials that we need to know about. CO2 and dry ice, things of that nature.
Yeah.
The bigger stuff that takes up a fair amount of the airplane, for example, a helicopter or a tank or something along those lines. Obviously, we know what it is because it's pretty obvious. But yeah, when it's loaded in those igloos, we can't see what's in there.
What are your thoughts on the amount of lithium-ion batteries you guys are allowed to carry? Because like we make such a big deal at the airlines, right, about lithium-ion batteries, but then you guys carry like a lot of batteries at one time.
Yeah, planefuls of lithium batteries.
Planefuls, like there's no limit on that.
Well, there's certainly limits, but they're
it's not like what we have.
We could probably fill the airplanes you guys fly with lithium batteries and still be okay with what we carry. So yeah, obviously we have a little more firefighting capabilities than you guys do with cargo decks and the ability to seal them off from the upper deck where we are. Being a 3-story airplane, the 2 stories below us, we can isolate from ourselves. So that gives us a little more time before smoke and fire becomes an issue for us. So it's the biggest risk we have, honestly. We've got 4 engines out there. I mean, we lose an engine, it's not even an emergency, it's a checklist. Right. So fire is always our biggest concern, and so yeah, lithium's the stuff that we really watch out for, and we really do our due diligence as pilots to walk the freight and double check everyone else's work and make sure everything's the way it needs to be, because that is the big risk for us.
Or the famous video, I think it was coming out of Afghanistan, right? Or was it Iraq, where the cargo came loose and the big 7-4 pitched up?
Yeah. So, that's, that whenever you have non-standard cargo that's sitting on what we call cookie sheets, basically you can imagine a cookie sheet that's, it's 30 feet long and, 20 feet wide. That's what they'll put these vehicles on and then strap them down. And that's, those strapping plans are very complicated, and it's easy to see how there could be mistakes made. Again, I spend a lot of time with my guys looking over things like that, because those are the risks. Obviously, there's freight moving, freight catching on fire, freight that shouldn't be next to other freight mixing together and causing bad things to happen. Those are the big items for us.
Yeah. Wow. Tell us a little bit about your path, Derrek, to end up doing that. Did you do like a more traditional 121 flying and then kind of look for something new, or what got you into the ACMI?
I mean, right before this job, I was flying regionals, at passenger regional airline, and I was at that point where I was ready to make a change, and serendipity, I guess. I was certainly looking at majors, but this came along, and after talking with a few guys and interviewing and meeting the people on site, I thought this was something a little more tailored to a guy like me who likes to do side projects and keep busy when I'm not flying, and being able to be home for 2 weeks is really nice. And not having to commute, that was another big one. I did not want to do commuting anymore after having done it for a long time. So those are the big ones, and I wasn't sure if I was going to stick. You know how that is. You go someplace and you're willing to give it a shot, and here I am 8 years later. So apparently it's stuck.
What's the typical pilot that you see? Like, is it a lot of folks come and then a couple, they do a year or two, kind of get that experience, and then that's where they kind of decide? Or do you see a lot of turnover in that first couple of years, or what's kind of the pilot group made up?
Yeah, I mean, most of the turnover does occur in that first 12 to 24 months. We have a standard 12-month probationary period. Yeah. A lot of guys are gone within 6 months after that, so the first 18 months. Some within 24. It seems like once you've been there a couple of years, a lot of guys shift gears to staying around. I think overall our attrition after that 2-year mark is probably pretty low compared to a lot of. I mean, if you would compare us to a regional, I'd say our attrition's lower after that 2-year point
Right.
than it would be at a regional.
Right.
Because people have either acclimated to the lifestyle or realized that it was better than maybe going to a major for their lifestyle.
Right. Yeah, it seems like we have a couple college buddies that do it, and they're just like, "This, I'm not leaving. Like, this is great. I love this." So,
Yeah, it's. I mean, again, for me, it's just so nice being home for 2 weeks, and honestly, when I'm home, I'm not thinking about work at all. I mean,
Yeah.
Whereas when I was in the regionals, I'd do my 4-day, and I'd commute back from my domicile that was 800 miles away, and I'm already thinking about repacking my bag and getting ready to leave again. And with this job, once I'm home, I'm not thinking of work for 2 weeks. It's great. I love that.
that's awesome.
Let's take a time out from our conversation to talk about another friend of ours, Timothy P. Pope, who's a certified financial planner dedicated to guiding professional pilots through smart financial planning. Whether it's saving for retirement, investment management, a seamless military transition, or strategic tax planning, Tim is your trusted financial partner. Join Tim as he leads engaging discussions on personal finance strategies for professional pilots on the Pilot Money Podcast. Timothy P. Pope, helping professional pilots make the most out of life.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about what you are thinking about all the time.
when you're not flying.
And that
The other
is-
job.
That's right. The other job. So you started Pilot Luggage Company, and it sounds like you've been working on this for a while. Folks that have watched our video reviews know that we've reviewed one of your bags. Max and I both use them today, and so we'll talk a little bit about that. But give us the origin story and talk about what possessed you to make your own cargo company in a way.
Yeah, so I've got a reputation around my house and around my neighborhood. I'm that guy that if you walk around, you happen to walk by my Land Rover or my lawnmower, it's been modified. I'm one of those guys that I just can't stand. If I see something that I think I can make a little better, I just start tinkering and working at it until I've figured out how to make it better. Being a pilot, obviously we drag luggage all the time. I've gone through all the same bags that everyone else has probably had at one time or another, the old names that everyone knows. And, I got frustrated with a lot of the features that I thought were either not well executed or could have been done better. I got a little tired of looking at the same black fabric vinyl, material that everyone uses, and you go to a pilot room, you can't find your bag because they're all the same. So now you have to put colorful tags on them and hangs things off them so you can find your bag in the crew room. So I took all of the years of dragging those bags and initially I started to try and modify those bags to be better. And after a year or two of that, I got to the point where I realized I was sort of slapping more lipstick on the same pig. So that was when I decided it was time to maybe get a little more aggressive with it, and that ended up being quite the project. If you want to take a lot of your free time and completely evaporate it, try and start a luggage company from scratch. And it's a lot of work, but it's done for my own personal enjoyment, honestly, because I do like hearing from guys saying that they've been carrying the cases and they get a lot of positive feedback. People really enjoy them, and if I've given guys and gals that are on the road 180 days out of the year a little bit better luggage for their needs, great. If that's successful, then I'm success in my mind.
Yeah, we have a couple different versions that we've used. There's a 4-wheel. They're all, so those of you that haven't heard of these are aluminum, all aluminum cases, bags, and they come in a 4-wheel version and also a more traditional like 2-wheel version as well. And now there's a flight case that kind of resembles the size of the case that we used to carry a long time ago to hold, like a chart case.
Yeah.
And so surprisingly, it fits perfect in the cockpit that was designed around those.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
What a coincidence.
What a
Yeah,
crazy
it's
thing.
coincidental, isn't it?
So yeah, I'll talk about the setup. So now, luckily, having known Derrek and him supporting the show and stuff, I have the 4-wheel bag that you can wheel around vertically, but the wheels, you have to look at it because the wheels are like different than a normal 4-wheel bag. Like they're bigger and they're just like much sturdier, and you can also pull the bag like a 2-wheel bag because the wheels are big enough to support the weight and the diameter of them to roll over stuff. So that bag now I really become accustomed to using when I'm a corporate pilot.
I told you.
I know.
See, I told you.
You're right. And like in the back of an airplane, like if you're riding as a passenger in an airliner, it's really nice to just roll down the center aisle. And like you said, I usually carry a backpack when I go on those trips. So like have your backpack on it. When it's vertical is nice, but then there's this cargo rail in the front, and there's several different hooks it comes with. So you can put a cargo and you can adjust how high in the bag it is, and then you can hook even more stuff. So like it's pretty awesome, that bag. And then on my airline side, I've just reached like nirvana, like in the last like couple weeks.
You did it, Derrek.
Yeah, Derrek.
You pushed him over the edge.
So
Finally.
So now I have the same bag. It's basically the same bag, sort of, but it has 2 wheels. It's like a 2-wheel bag, right? That like we all mostly use. But then he has this flight case that's an aluminum version of that, the old flight bag size deal, but it's made of aluminum. But the cool thing is it has this like rail system where it slides into the front. So you're not like hooking on a J hook and like it coming off and the escalator, all that stuff. Like this thing slides in and it locks on there. Like, and then also the cool thing about the flight case too is if you have a day trip, which we do,
not a lot of day trips for Derrek.
Not a lot of day trips for you, but then, and you don't want to bring your bag. This bag has wheels and a handle too. So, because mine's like really heavy.
Yeah.
Like I put a lot of stuff in there.
In your chart
a lot
case,
of heavy stuff too.
Yeah.
So it's pretty awesome, and you get a lot of street credit with that setup. It's pretty badass. Like everybody is like, it's kind of getting old, honestly. Now,
I mean, everything in there was an attempt to solve a problem, right?
Yeah.
So everything I looked at was, okay, I've got this J hook, and it holds my second bag. I have to have the J hook because I have to carry more than one bag. But as you mentioned, you're getting off an escalator, and all of a sudden you realize your bag's kind of light. You look back, and your accessory bag's sitting on the escalator still.
Yep.
People are tripping over it. So how do you solve that? Okay, so I started working on that, and then the other issue was you walk around with your 2 bags, the J hook, and it's got that long strap on it, and if you make it turn a little too fast, all of a sudden because it's on the end of this long lever, it just swings off to the side. The whole rig falls over, and now you're that guy in the middle of the terminal with people tripping over you, trying to get everything back on your setup. So those were all the kind of issues that I was having, like everyone else does, that I needed to try and solve. And so all those things that you're talking about, those were all attempts after many failures, by the way. I mean, we went through a lot of different redesign and all this stuff to kind of end up where we are now. And I think that what you see today is our current versions of everything, and we keep making little incremental changes and improvements as we go, as we learn more. And that was where the 2-wheel bag came out, because the 4-wheel bag was I thought our solution, our ultimate solution for guys. And as it turns out, there's a reason for 2-wheel bags, and so we redesigned and re-engineered and made more aluminum parts that
what he's holding up right now is the machined like CNC aluminum housing where the wheel goes. Like it's no joke.
Yeah, so there's no plastic, right? On the crew bags, you don't use plastic where things break. Wheels break, wheel boxes break. So we make these out of billet aluminum. They start with a chunk of solid billet aluminum that is then machined, and all the waste comes out and is recycled. But in order to make these things strong, you really need to do it this kind of way. And it's not cheap to do it this way. It's very expensive, but it's the right way to do it, because these can take a hit. You can use these for 10 years, and then you're not going to see any wear and tear on aluminum like this. Same thing goes with the 2-wheel version. This is the new 2-wheel version that you're carrying right now, where the wheel sits somewhat in, but it's been raised above also, so that there's enough ground clearance that you don't drag the bag. And then we put the axle through the inside here so that you can actually change the wheels on the road. You don't have to, send the bag back if you need a wheel, for example. A lot of this stuff was, this was the version before that, which is cool looking, but because it's not raised, didn't have enough ground clearance, and so prototype gone and off to the new one.
Well, what I love is that you're testing all these new prototypes for at least 16 days at a time.
and not just me. I mean, that's one thing that a lot of the guys at my carrier have been helpful in carrying stuff, prototypes to help carry some of the load for me, and try and beat them up and see what works, what doesn't work, and that way we can produce a fix if we find something that wasn't quite what we thought it was.
I tell you what, who beats these up? I had to gate check my bag because it was full in the overhead. One of these.
Oh yeah.
United will freaking take care of that.
We were just going to sign them as a sponsor, Max. You ruined it.
United, yeah, right. But yeah, and the other cool thing too is that you can laser engrave these. So like you talked about, like trying to identify your bag. Like these just look more badass than everyone else's bag. But when there are a bunch of them around, like ours has the 21.5 logo on it, and like my initials, it's pretty sweet.
Someone's going to see that in the crew lounge and know it's you now, and then they're going to stick a turd in there or something.
Yeah, I know. Well, that brings me to, they all have combination locks, Dylan. No one can stick anything in there. Every compartment has a combo lock on. And then the flight case, at first, I was like, oh, there's like no compartments. And then Derrek's like, yeah, I know. I made it like so you can put whatever you want in there. If you want to bring a cooler like that fits, you put that in there. And now you sell like an insert that goes in there, right? But I have like no interest in that because I love the big. Like now I have it all figured out and like, okay, so the bag, and then it tips up a certain way. So I put certain things on that side that I want on the bottom of the stack, right? And then like my headset on the top, so it's not getting crushed.
Right.
So you get it figured out, and it's like, and then that changes like sometimes based on the trip I'm on, but it's.
Yeah, I mean, my last flight case before I started making them was, the typical flight case with 20 different zippers on it and all these different compartments everywhere. And I'd be flying along, and okay, I got a little sun on my eyes, I need my sunglasses, and then I got to lift the bag up because I can't unzip with one hand and dig in the compartment, so I got to put it on my lap. And here I'm trying to fly the airplane and dig around for sunglasses, and so there's got to be a better way, and that's why that one compartment made sense because once you have it organized the way you want it. When you open that lid up, sitting in the flying position, that lid sits up against the seat vertically and open. You just reach in, grab your sunglasses, pull them out, and put them on. I don't have to search around; they're right there. So, there's kind of a thought process to it. Why we did it that way,
Derrek, could this have been made 10 years ago, 15 years ago? Like the access to like print on demand with CNC machines and other things, like. Is this something that for you as an individual to make, like there needed to be a certain amount of access to technology and CAD design and that kind of stuff? Or what do you think?
So, CAD CAM design has been around for a while. I mean, my background is mechanical engineering, and I actually used to build race cars for a living way back in the day. And so CAD CAM is something we've been using for a long time, but the accessibility to it has really improved. And now the ability to share across platforms with CAD CAM has been improved as well. So now when I'm working with machine shops, it's a lot easier than it used to be back in the day. And then the advent of CNC, computer-aided machining, has really upped the game because now a part that this would on a manual machine would take 4 hours to make just one of these. We can make these in probably 10 minutes now, with a 5-axis CNC machine, which is what we use. So yeah, I think it would have been probably cost prohibitive to do it 20 years ago. Because again, these parts would take too long, and the labor hours and everything else, it'd be prohibitive. That certainly made things better. I think also just the fact that now we do have the ability to bring parts in from further away, cheaper. So that we can assemble them here in Utah, really has upped the game as well.
That's thanks to your airline, by the way.
Partly, yeah. So when you import wheels from Germany and you bring in parts from Japan and whatnot, 20 years ago it'd be on a boat for 4 months, and now it takes 4 days. So all that's helped to make these cases come to market. But the one thing we've decided not to do is have them made overseas. So the cases are all made here in northern Utah by hand by locals. Our machine shops are down in Salt Lake City, so close by. We buy our aluminum from American suppliers. So, it's just, we try and do as much as we can here, but we're still a global company. We still bring in parts from all over the world as we have to.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking when you asked it. I'm like, I'm sure it was possible to do this, but I think
Not at scale.
not possible to deliver to cheap ass pilots, at a price that they would pay. So you look at it. So the bag that this reminds me of is Rimowa, right? Which is like a premium aluminum bag.
Well, as pilots of as corporate jets, we see those probably
we see those all the time.
All the time.
A 22-inch bag from a Rimowa is $1,550. Like, so that was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, we obviously, if you put our bag next to theirs, you can see there's a lot of inspiration from Rimowa. Great company, great suitcases. And in fact, if you start really looking close at their components, you might find a lot of similarity to the point where it's maybe the same exact part.
Yeah.
Because we do use a lot of the same suppliers. So when it comes to locks and hinges and things like that, you'll notice they're the same, and that's because those suppliers are supplying to more than just Rimowa. But obviously, I don't know a lot of pilots. I'm sure there are a few, but I'm not one that's going to go out and spend that kind of money, $1,500 for a suitcase. So we needed to find a way to do it cheaper without sacrificing quality, obviously. And then the other thing is that Rimowa is great, but it's not hardened for a pilot.
It's not designed.
Correct.
It doesn't have the features that we need. It's just not. It's not going to survive on the road the way we fly. So we had to change it anyway. But I think we were successful. I mean, we were able to come to market at a price point that's pretty similar to the rest of the luggage companies out there. Some
cheaper
than some, maybe a little more expensive than others, but we are the only pilot-centric bag that's aluminum magnesium alloy. I mean, and I'll stack our bag up next to anybody's as far as appearance too. I mean, I think from that side, you don't look like any other bag out there.
No, it's unbelievable. And I get so many compliments. So
I've never been compelled to take a picture of my bag sitting in the jetway, but I'm like, that is just badass. Like, look at that. That's just a total power move.
I got asked
look at this. The best part is the bag behind it. Can you see it? It's just all like, some janky leather draped over it. It just looks like one step above the homeless guy in front of the airport.
It was funny. Somebody asked me one of the first times I took mine out. I have the silver, I think it's called Starlight is the color, but somebody asked me, he's like, that bag's so amazing, and it has the laser engraving. And I'm like, and I think I was in like some type of pilot gear. Maybe I had my idea or something. He's like, are non-pilots allowed to buy that?
No,
I was like,
no. We said yes. They have a line
absolutely
of bags that are made for the non-pilot,
for the leisure traveler,
for the spouse that want to be.
We initially, obviously, we were totally pilot-centric for all the obvious reasons, but very quickly we were getting phone calls from your road warrior types that they're on the road, maybe not 180 days a year, but close to it, and they say, hey, we really like this, but we don't want this or that, and so we started customizing bags one at a time for these road warrior types. And as they were out there carrying their bags, their other buddies were seeing it and they wanted it. And so it got to the point where we were customizing every one of them. We finally just said, you know what, it's time we just start a line just for these guys. And that's where we are.
At a fifth of the price of a Rimowa bag, by the way.
So I mean, that always helps, right? That always helps. Yeah.
So I mean, it's so compelling, the offering. But I wanted, before we move on, Max, I wanted to mention.
Oh, I'm not ready to move on.
Well, from your flight kit thing you were talking about, the return of the sticker on the flight case. Huge.
It's too pretty. You can't.
But
it's laser engraved.
I know,
there's no returning of the sticker. The sticker is gone by the wayside.
Is it? Because see, I mean,
it's like saying are we returning with the flip phone? Like, no, it's freaking laser etched.
Don't you remember like having stickers on your flight kit though?
Yeah,
and that was a lot of fun. So you're not going to do that?
No. Wow. It's too badass looking.
But you could now, again, if you wanted to, I guess.
I'll tell you what, we've got guys
personally
that they say that one of the biggest selling points was the fact that they could get their stickers back on a bag again.
See, there you go.
It's a thing, and I don't put them on mine because marketing, but but the guys I fly with that have our cases, I mean, they are man, it's like the bags got tatted up or something. They're just covered in colorful stuff.
Well, can you imagine, like, especially if you, for your buddies at the ACMI world, just like putting a sticker from every place you go, like, would just be, that'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, and I think that's part of the appeal too. Is that it's funny. You mentioned Remo earlier, and these are aluminum cases, so they're going to get scratches and dings and dents and things like that. That's just part of the appeal also, because for example, in Japan, you will actually make more money selling a well-used Rimowa bag that's been around the world, it's got stickers all over it, than a brand new Rimowa. They actually pay more for used ones than they do new ones.
Wow.
Because they like the fact that bag has been around the world 20, 30, 40 times, and shows the miles, and so I think pilots have a lot of also where they kind of want to show, hey, this is what I do 180 days a year, and I'll slap a sticker on, and then that I earned that dent in Djibouti, or I earned that dent in southern southern Afghanistan or wherever,
right?
So yeah, it's part of the appeal, and I used to carry stickers on my old leather bound case that I used to carry.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's part of the fun. Okay, I want to talk for a minute about, there is one learning curve to this bag coming from me, two-wheel traditional bag with just the front zip up, and you open it and you got a big compartment and you put stuff in. With the hard shell case, it opens like a clamshell, right? So you have two shallower packing areas. It took me a little bit to kind of figure that out, and I feel like you probably have to educate folks on this a little bit because it's a little different. So tell us a little bit about how, since you're the load master and you're inspecting cargo all over the place, how do you correctly pack these, and what are some of the techniques that folks need to know about?
Yeah, so we designed the case, as you mentioned, splits in the middle, so there's two distinct sides. We made one side. The idea was, this is your overnight stuff on one side, stuff that you don't need access to until you get to your hotel, and then the other side is more accessible for things that you might need to grab. For example, let's say you're winter flying and you're leaving from Scottsdale, but you're flying up to Seattle, and it's snowing in Seattle. Well, when you get there, you didn't put your jacket on when you got on the plane in Scottsdale, but you want it when you get to Seattle. So that side, if you had your jacket inside, it's got a very quick and easy elastic clip that undoes a flap that holds the clothes in, and there's also a snap retainer that's tensionable. But that's something you can easily open the case standing up in the airport, which is something you can't do with most of these other cases, right? So a regular ballistic nylon bag, you start unzipping things and things start falling out. This, when you open the clamshell, and you don't open it past 90 degrees, it'll stay standing up, and then you can undo that flap and reach in and grab that jacket out and close the bag back up again. So that was kind of the intent of having one side somewhat accessible, so if you had to grab something quickly, you could. The other side, much more secure, designed to keep stuff that you're not really going to even look at until you get to the hotel. As far as packing goes, one of the things that I found was, in order to get the same amount of volume of clothes in, I really needed to section things off. So we actually designed our own packing cubes, which, everyone's seen packing cubes. Ours are compression packing cubes, which, if you stack a stack of clothes into the cube, which we make cubes that are designed for shirt sizes and pants, you can actually put a 12-inch stack of clothes together, zip the lid, and then there's a compression zipper that goes around and around and around, and that starts to compress this down to about a third of the original height. And that just so happens to be exactly the thickness of the 22-inch carry-on. So if you do that properly with the packing cubes, you should be able to get everything you used to get into a slightly larger bag into this bag, and it's much nicer too when you get to the hotel to just pull this cube out and there's my overnight stuff, or pull this cube out, there's my work stuff. Here's my toiletries. It's very sectioned. You don't have to use drawers. I mean, most pilots don't. We just throw it on the bed, but you don't have to, start pulling everything out, haphazardly on the bed, because you know exactly what your cube is.
Yeah,
and that's why we do that.
It's pretty.
But it is different.
It's pretty staggering, like how much stuff with those packing cubes, how much more stuff you can put in to your bag. It's crazy.
Yeah. they work good, and it's something where we designed the kit to accommodate probably 2 cases worth of cubes. We put way more in there than you actually need. But that's because a lot of guys actually carry more than 1 case. They have 2 different sizes, one for the long trips, one for the short trips. So that's pretty common with guys that buy from us.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I would say that's the learning curve for me was getting an undisciplined packer like myself that just threw stuff in. If you don't really kind of squeeze it down, like you're like, oh, I can only fit like 2 days worth of clothes in here.
Well, that's but it's funny because on my airline trips, like usually a 3-day trip is what I'm doing. I don't use.
You don't have to
cubes or anything. I just throw it all
perfect.
in there and put my shoes. I put my shoes in my toiletry bag on the one side, and then all my clothes in the zip side, and then
and
I
it's
just
perfect.
go. But then if you then when you start to need to maximize it, or I've even used those cubes in bigger suitcases, like just to pack all like for Europe and stuff, and so it's just I'm a big cube guy now.
For guys like us, I mean, 2 weeks on the road, and we used to carry the competition's 26-inch bag.
Yeah,
and it was full and packed to the brim, and we could never get it on the airplane. We'd always have to check it. And so when I went to our cases, as I was starting to prototype, we were 25, so it's smaller than the competition 26 a little bit. And and I was able to get everything I needed to in there. But when we started developing the packing cubes, I suddenly ended up with a third of that bag empty on the road with me. So then I started thinking maybe I can take the 22 for 2 weeks on the road at a time. And I did. I took the 22, but the way that really made that happen was having the flight deck case also. Because the flight deck case is actually, it's a large case. I mean, you get a lot of room in there. And so I was able to shift some of the stuff that I would carry in my carry-on into the flight deck case. So I actually do 2 weeks on the road at a time with a 22 and a flight deck case, which blows people's mind because they can't imagine that a 22 would last 2 weeks on the road. But with the packing cubes and the flight deck case, it's possible.
Wow. Do you use now? Big question, Derek. Do you use the 2-wheel or the 4-wheel?
Ooh,
I like the 4-wheel. Personally. Now that being said, I mean, I'm involved in all the prototyping, of course. So I've been carrying the 2-wheel extensively in the past 8 months or so as we've finished development on it. The big advantage, I mean, so if you get a direct comparison between the 4 and the 2, the 2-wheel is a little shorter because of just the geometry of the way the wheels are. It drops about an inch to an inch and a half off the height of the bag. It's about a pound lighter, so that's significant. And it has about an inch more packing room on the wheel box side, and about almost 2 inches on the non-wheel box side, the side that has our landing gear, which are rubber feet. So you get a little more room to pack, a little less weight, and a little less dimensions on the outside. So that's all good stuff. What you don't get with the 2-wheel is the advantage of, being able to stack your second bag on top and walk down the aisle without having to carry the bags. And, one thing this beard shows you is I'm a little on the older side as far as pilots go. And carrying 2 bags, one way out in front and way up, way behind me, all the way down the aisle, trying to get into an airplane, it wears on you. And, being able to just push it down the aisle is kind of nice with a 4-wheel. And don't forget, the 4-wheel drags as a 2-wheel just fine. So, personally, I like having the ability to roll as a 2-wheeler, but still have the convenience of the 4-wheeler, and a little extra length and a little less packing space for me is worth it. But that's just me. My wife's a 2-wheeler, so there you go.
Yeah, the 4-wheeler, it's cool because I don't roll it around all the time as a 4-wheeler. Like I pull it as a 2-wheeler as much, maybe even a little bit more. It's just,
really?
I just like that. Like if I'm walking like to the car, like a long distance or through an airport, well, I don't know. So I kind of do both. I don't know.
You have the flexibility.
Yeah,
you can mix it up.
Yeah, you get the flexibility, which is it's just really nice. I think the advantage also with the 2-wheel is if you go into rough ramps, where it's not smooth, airport terminal, marble. The 2-wheel, we made those wheels very soft, so they really absorb a lot of that impact. It's a lot quieter rolling the 2-wheel than the 4-wheel. So there's an advantage there. But that's why we offer both. I mean, we I think every person's mission will be solved by one or the other. And if you do multiple missions, you might have to buy 2. I mean, we're okay selling it 2.
That's the best. That's the best solution.
Honestly, I mean, I'll
love
tell you,
having both.
I do. I use a 2-wheel bag for certain missions, and the 4-wheeler. I mean, and especially that for me, the corporate trips, it's a couple nights. you and just to remove all that weight is just so great. My arm is just
So the guy I fly with in the corporate jet, Christian, he has the big luggage work steel like monster dog, and I'm just sitting there. And the other day, or it was a month ago, or whatever ago, and I'm sitting there, and our bags are both sitting next to each other, and we're in the FBO, and I just look at him, and I look at the bags, and I look back, and I'm like, "What are you even doing, dude?"
It's a young man's. He's a young man.
Just like,
it's a young man's game.
I bought that. I don't know. With it.
Well, it's funny too because
So funny.
Derek, we talked about this a little bit in the luggage review videos that we did, and look, it's any good bag is going to cost a little bit of money. It's just the way it goes. But in the grand scheme of things, when you think about how much we use a piece of luggage and physically what that luggage can do to your back, shoulders, arm, I mean, it's like I could easily justify paying thousands of dollars for a bag if I'm going to use it.
Use it all the time.
If you use it, like, what am I using more than that? I mean, my phone. Like, there's not many things beyond that where it's like, I think it's, you spend a little, obviously, when you're in the right part of your career, spend some money and get yourself a good bag is like it's an incredible investment, I think, that will pay back.
Life's too short.
Yeah, life's too short to be
Right. Absolutely.
I agree. Hefting around. Yeah. What else, Derek? What else should we cover here on the bag discussion?
I think a couple of neat things with the two-wheel. One of the things that always annoyed me is I'd show up in this beautiful hotel in Hong Kong, and it's 11 or 12 o'clock at night, and I go to set down my normal pilot bag prior to me doing these, and it slams down to the ground because you got these aluminum feet on the front of the case. So when we built our two-wheel, we actually instead of putting aluminum feet there, we actually made them out of a soft rubber that actually absorbs impact and they're quiet. So when you set that bag down, there's no noise. So those rubber feet, actually, we call them landing gear, but they're it's kind of a new take on it. They're replaceable, of course, like everything else on the case if you ever damage something. But it was another little thought process that, hey, why let a bag clank down to the ground and make a bunch of noise and slide around and all that stuff. So now when you set your that two-wheel bag in a crew van, I mean, it'll just stay there. It won't roll around. It really grips the ground because of those extra feet.
Yeah,
that's one of the nice things.
Have you thought about adding a brake to the four-wheel bag? Because that's the only thing, like if the wind or like in a jetway, that's the big thing. Like if you're putting it out in the jetway, which pilots often do, right?
Yeah.
It can roll away unless you have something that's like hanging off the hook, hitting the ground. So
yeah. So we actually originally, if you look at the wheels, you'll actually see the four-wheel versions. You'll actually see a little bit of a pocket, and that pocket was actually designed for wheel locks. And that was our original idea, was we'll put locks on so you can lock the wheels, and that way it won't roll around in the crew van. But then very quickly, guys were forgetting to unlock the locks and dragging the bag, and now we got flat spots on their tires. So we started debating whether this was smart or not, because they could get locked in inadvertently, and you wouldn't know it. And now you got guys with bags hopping around because of flat spots.
Or think about if you got one that got jammed and you have like one wheel locked or something. And it's like, well, now what? Now this thing.
Yeah. So we actually abandoned the locks because of that. But the solution is that we put feet on the side of the case. So if you're going to go on a crew bus and it's just that bag, you don't have any accessory bags attached to it to hold it in place. You set it down on the feet and it won't go anywhere. So that was our solution. And in fact, what you'll see, as we work through production in the next several months, you'll see that our new four wheels that we're going to be producing don't have that notch anymore for the locks, since we're not going to put them back on. So it's just a little cleaner design. But same wheels, same big giant bearings, same hollow hubs to keep the weight down. That large diameter to roll over bigger stuff, so it's not getting caught on everything in the airport terminals, whatever. So all the big advantages are still there, but just without that notch for the lock that doesn't exist.
Max's suggestion when we talked about it earlier was to develop some chocks, and you keep them in that little quick access.
In that little quick access panel on the front.
Yeah.
I was going to 3D print some of those. Be like, oh, hold on.
Let me chalk this.
Yeah, patent it.
That's right.
Yeah, pop the walk-open compartment out. Walk around the compartment out and pull your chocks out and slap them down around the wheels.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that quick access compartment on the front that you developed there. What was the inspiration for that, and how hard was it to actually execute that correctly?
Yeah. So the purpose of the walk around compartment was for the walk around. So what I found is, walking up to the airplane to do a walk around inspection, you need your vest and your flashlight, and maybe you need a poncho or your or a hoodie or maybe a beanie or something. You know, Again, rifling through your bags trying to find all those things. Oh, where did I put the flashlight last time? Where's my beanie? I figured let's put everything in one convenient spot that you don't have to dig into the bowels of your bag. It's just right there on the top of the bag, and all in one convenient place. So that was the purpose of that compartment, being at the top there. And we had to put a little extra thought into it because the next thing was, our bags are designed to be spray proof. So if you're in a rain or snow or whatever, the contents of the inside of your bag don't get wet. We have a tongue and groove seal, so when they go together, it seals the case half so they don't get wet. You could hose it down; it won't get wet inside. But on your walk around, it could be in the rain, it could be in the snow. You got a wet beanie now that you're going to throw into this compartment, and if it's shared with the rest of the stuff in your bag, well, now the rest of the stuff in your bag is wet too. So we made it a separate compartment, with a separate division there. And unlike the main part of the suitcase, we said, well, we don't want to put wet stuff into a sealed compartment that could mold or whatever. So we designed it to actually evaporate. So that compartment's the only compartment on the case that's not designed to keep water out. And the reason is so the water inside can actually evaporate out. It turns out that besides being great for walk-arounds, I end up putting my wallet in there. I put, my phone in there sometimes. I'll put my phone charger in there. It's just a convenient place that's right on the top of the case, and you don't have to dig around all your, all your other pockets and whatnot to get.
That's lockable too, by the way.
And it's lockable too, like everything else on the case. Exactly. Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah, I stuff all my chargers in there currently.
Oh.
And
so you can electrocute yourself when you get some water in there?
Yeah.
That'd be perfect. That's a really good idea, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wallet goes in there all the time because when I'm checking into a hotel, I don't have to, start digging around for stuff. It's just right there.
Yeah, and I stick my travel microphone that you make me bring all the time in there.
That's great for podcasters. Thank you. We appreciate that. We needed that.
We've got a videographer that he keeps his GoPro and stuff in there, so he can access it quickly. And he actually took one of our stud mounts for the cargo track, and he mounts his GoPro on his cargo track, so he can actually video as he's walking around the airports.
I will not be doing that.
Come on, for the content? No. Do it for the gram? No? Okay.
So I got these meta glasses now for the gram.
That's right. Okay, I know we're coming up on time for you, Max. Anything else you want to hit real quick, Derrek? Or
we did come out with another line called the Jet Setter, which is kind of a low hung 4-wheel bag, single opening on the top. It's not really designed as a flight deck case. It's more of a sort of an overnighter or a stand-up kind of bag, designed for that weekend trip. It's been great with flight attendants. They've really enjoyed that case because it's a little easier for them to stack their purse on top of because it's low. And it is, again, it's a little different design because it's got ridges. And it turns out it's actually the lightest suitcases we make. So by volume, they're actually lighter than all the other cases. The wheels actually are replaceable by simply pushing a button, clicking the wheel off. So kind of neat features, but also the big thing that you guys mentioned earlier was that we actually built sort of like a camera case style insert for those, and it's got all those adjustable walls and things that you can construct to put sensitive equipment in. So the camera guys are really loving that. The videographers are really loving it. Podcasters loving it, and the flight attendants also because they're carrying a lot of stuff that they might need access to when they're in the plane, and they can section those things off. So that's become it's starting to become very popular as well. It's a whole new line we came out with not too long ago. Not necessarily just pilot centric, but also kind of general traveler.
Cool.
Yeah, that one's cool. All right, so Max is using the professional flight crew case. I am using the leisure traveler case, and they're both great. Or maybe I have the frequent flyer. I actually need to go double check that. I'll edit that. I think I have the frequent flyer.
Yeah, you have the cargo track.
Yeah. No, I don't.
Oh, you don't?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you get the frequent flyer, which basically is mid spec. So it's in between the leisure and the professional. It's got the big wheels. Does not have the cargo track because most frequent flyers aren't looking to add accessory bags. So we got rid of that. But we kept the curb sliders in the back, so you can slam into an escalator and not ding the bag. So yeah.
that one's, I think, great for corporate pilots that probably aren't dropping that, needing that cargo rail.
Sure.
So, okay. We will have, of course, all of the links in the show notes for this. If you remember on our YouTube luggage review series, we reviewed their 4-wheel bag, and then we'll probably have to do an update here with the 2-wheeler after you use it for a little bit, and the flight case. So lots more video content coming up on that to check out. You can see Max, he's so happy now that he's reached suitcase nirvana. It's just spilling over into every other aspect of his life. It's just incredible. So Derrek, it's really been exciting to learn a little bit about the process of where this came from. I mean, how cool to be a professional pilot and a mechanical engineer, kind of like the two things that you really need to be able to make a great bag. And then the ability to test it at work, like you and some of the prototype testers do. So it's the perfect marriage of all of those things. And I think folks are really going to like this bag. It has been my accessory of the year, I would say, for sure.
Indeed, for sure.
We will get you out on this, Derrek. Story time. Do you have anything good from your many exciting travels to random countries all over the world? Any good stories for our listeners?
Well, when you're flying 16 hours sometimes, things change a lot between your departure airport and your destination airport. And there was a particular time we took off from Atlanta, I believe, flying to Istanbul, and it was sort of the edge of our range limit for that aircraft with the load we had that day. And upon arrival, it decided to snow in Istanbul, which is exceedingly rare.
Okay.
And so the airport was very congested and backed up because of that. We ended up landing with not as much fuel as you'd hope, but we were the biggest airplane to get in there successfully without having to go somewhere else. And I think we made the local news and everything that day too. But that was one of those challenging days that you look back on and say, glad we had all the training we had and the good crew we had on board on that day. So
absolutely. I mean, that's just got to be going into all those different airports. It's just so different than the airline where, it's, you're in and out of the hub airport. You kind of, you've done this so many times. Like, it's just always that excitement of the new and that's a challenge. So I salute you for doing that. That's impressive. How many fuel trucks does it take? Like, how many trucks have you gone through if you're going to take a huge load of fuel?
Well, I'll tell you, there's airports that don't have the big trucks, and we've literally gone through at least a dozen trucks before, and I think they only had 6, so they kept having to go back and refill the trucks to come back to fuel us up, and I think it took us over 4 hours to get fuel that day.
Are you kidding me?
So that can't happen.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's incredible. No quick turns with the Queen.
Not really. No, not in the regional airline version of that. No.
Right. Oh my gosh, that is amazing. Well, we certainly appreciate you sharing a little bit about your experience and the company and the product that you've created for us. Max had to run; he had to go get his kid from school. So we'll close it up here. I anticipate we'll have you back with more exciting product launches here coming in the future. Again, the links for Paradox Aviation Luggage will be in the show notes. Check out the videos. And we're so excited for this partnership, Derrek. Thank you for creating the perfect bag.
Thanks for having me on, and look forward to sharing more with you in the future.
All right. Sounds good.
The statements made in this show are our own opinions and do not reflect, nor were they under any direction from any of our employers.